Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and in this video I'm going to go over all the changes in the macOS Ventura Beta 2 update. I'm going to be focusing in on the major changes around the new macOS Ventura software update mechanism, especially around the new upgrade process that you're going to want to know before you make the upgrade, and the big changes to the software update mechanism once you make it to Ventura. You're not going to find this information anywhere else, so you're going to want to stick around. Let's jump in and get started. Apple released macOS Ventura Beta 2 on June 22nd, 2022 at 12 noon Central Daylight Time. When they release a beta update for macOS, they also release a suite of iOS updates too. So for example, iOS 16 Beta 2 was released, same with iPadOS, tvOS, audioOS, and watchOS 9 Beta 2. On the software side on macOS, Xcode Beta 2 was also released along with command line tools. If you're looking for the Studio Display firmware update that was updated to version 16 that has not been released yet, and there also hasn't been a new version of Apple Configurator Beta 2 since the initial release when Beta 1 came out. There was also a release that just came out for Safari 16. Safari for the previous two operating systems right now is macOS Monterey and macOS Big Sur is always released as a separate update. Safari is included in Ventura. Safari 16.0 Seed 1 was released for macOS Monterey, and you need to be on 12.5 Beta 3 or newer, and macOS Big Sur Seed 1 was released, and you need to be on at least 11.6 or newer. Apple also released a full installer for macOS Ventura Beta 2. They don't release it on the same day that they release the update. So if you're looking for it on the day that the update was released, it won't come out until the next day. So on this 22nd, the update was available in Software Update, but on the 23rd, the next day, the full installer was available. And as soon as it's available, you can go to my database here, and you'll see the date and the time, and one click here will get you the full installer directly from Apple's servers. Apple also released an IPSW restore file. So if you have an M1 and you want to be able to restore it with Apple Configurator 2 in a second Mac, that is also available in my database too, and you can do a one-click download for that too. Now let's talk about the Beta 2 updated. If you're updating from macOS Ventura Beta 1, then it's going to be pretty easy. So let's take a look at that now. This is a 2018 Mac Mini, and it is on Beta 1. So if you want to update to Beta 2, all you need to do is go into the brand new System Settings. If you're used to using System Preferences for years, this is going to throw you off right away. You're like, what is going on? Where is everything? But if you're used to iPhone or iPad, this is going to look really familiar to you, and you might be able to start to navigate this pretty easy. But this is a big change, and Apple is trying to unify the settings between iOS, iPadOS, and macOS now. So let's take a look at where the software update mechanism is. It is now located in General. So you can click on General, and you can see that there's a red dot there telling us that there's attention and there's something that needs to be done in here. It's kind of weird because there's not a red dot here, but there's a gray dot, but it's still telling us something's going on in software update. So when we click on that, we already know that there's an update available in here, but it's still going to check anyway just to make sure there's not a new update before a previous one was listed as 1. So now it says, hey, macOS Ventura 13 Beta 2 is now available. This is going to get this identifier here if you have setting in the option. Let's click on that to check for updates automatically, and the system will check, and then if it finds an update, it will give you a red circle like that. So now that we see the update available in here, all we really need to do is click Update Now. So that's the update mechanism from Beta 1, and it will be the same throughout all the betas. Now that we've gone over the new software update mechanism in System Settings in Ventura, let's talk about how the update process has improved for at least M1 is from what I can see right now. So when we install a software update on macOS Big Sur and newer, the update mechanism is closer to iOS. You'll see it go into preparing mode after it's downloading. What that preparing mode does at a high level, first of all, the files of the update are downloaded into a certain location on macOS, and they're actually put into a software update folder in System, Library, Assets V2, COM Apple Mobile Software Update. And this is the update itself. And you can see that it was downloaded today at 10:23 p.m. And if we go Command I on that, we can see that the update itself is 1.71 gigabytes. Now, once that's done, the preparing mode starts. What's going to happen is that the system volume is going to be loaded. The update changes are going to be made to it. Then a brand new update snapshot is going to be created. Because remember, the system volume of macOS is now booted off a sealed snapshot. So let's take a quick look at that. If we open up Disk Utility, we can go click on View and then Show All Devices. And then when we see Macintosh hard drive, which is the system volume, we see that it is a snapshot. Here's the snapshot name, COM Apple OS Update, and then there's a number here. We can actually see that snapshot when we look in Terminal, and then we use the TM util and list all the snapshots. Here is the snapshot we are booted off of right now, and we can actually see that that matches the snapshot name here, 88D83, 88D83. Here is the new update snapshot that was already created with all of the changes. Once we reboot, that is part of the update where it's going to then boot off the new snapshot and delete the previous snapshot of the old system on the previous version. And that's a high level view of what is happening when it is saying that it's preparing the update in here. So it'll download the update. It'll go into preparing, which takes anywhere between 10 to 25 minutes. Once that's done, you'll get the restart button. When we hit the restart button, that's where the next part of the phase of the update is going to happen. We're going to have template migration, which is going to update the data volume. And then there's a final part of the update. But that part does not seem to be there anymore. And we're going to show you also how fast this update can actually install. If you have automatic updates selected for install here, like this one, it will automatically download it, and it'll automatically do that preparing part in the background for you. When that's done, you'll get a prompt up here or a notification that it's ready to reboot. Normally that process, and if you watch any of my previous videos, you could tell that that update process in the black screen mode takes anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes depending on your Mac and how fast it is to be able to do that update. So let's see that new update process live here on this M1. So all we need to do is click on Restart here. And then we are going to have to type in the volume ownership because we have an M1. So we'll click on OK. And we'll give it a second, and there it goes. Now I'm going to switch over to my capture card here so we can see it live. This section here is the template migration, which I was telling you about. There is no progress bar in this particular part of the update. And again, it is making the changes to the data volume because remember, we have the system volume and recovery OS. Once that part is done, it's immediately going to move to the next part. This part here should only take anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes depending on, well, and look, there we go. So it's only been maybe about 2 minutes so far, and we've already gone into the next part. It's rebooting now. Okay, here we are going into the second phase. Okay, we're coming back up. And look at that. That is one of the fastest updates that I've ever seen. When we complain about how long it takes to install macOS updates, it's a genuine complaint because we need to look at how fast Windows updates are getting better, and the fact that we can now update in a matter of minutes as long as we have the settings set properly is absolutely amazing. The way it's going to go is again, you go into software update, it will download the update, it will prepare the update. And then once it's ready to go and you hit restart, that's the process that's going to be so much more quicker. It will then go to a black screen immediately for about 30 seconds, give it a second, and then it'll come back up, do template migration with the user data volume, and then it will boot right back into the operating system anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes for M1. And again, that process normally took anywhere between 10 and 15, even 20 minutes on previous updates. That is a really great improvement, and wait till users see how fast the updates are being installed. Again, as long as you go in there and turn on automatic downloads and automatic preparation, that part's always going to be there. The idea is for that to happen in the background so you don't have to just sit here and watch the download and watch the preparation time. That's the changes in how fast software update can happen on M1. Okay, now let's talk about the big change in the software upgrade mechanism from going from previous operating systems to macOS Ventura. First of all, when you make the jump to a brand new operating system, it's a pretty clunky system, meaning that in the past, what you had to do was you had to go into system preferences, you would go to software update and you would see the upgrade here, right? And you would look at the size, and it's pretty big, anywhere between 12 and 13 gigabytes for the upgrade. But with macOS Ventura, that has changed. Let's first take a look at how we would make the jump to macOS Ventura Beta from a previous operating system. First of all, we can do that with the developer utility. We can use that with seed utility here by using the built-in binary to just drop yourself into the beta, or we can use the full installer. Any of those ways will get us to macOS Ventura Beta, but there's a new way to be able to get to macOS Ventura. Now, I've been doing a bunch of testing on here, and first of all, it looks like at the very least we have to be on 12.4. I have not been able to test on 12.31 or any of the previous versions, but there was a change somewhere in there to allow you to upgrade to macOS Ventura with a Delta update. So let's take a look at that first. And we'll also take a look at a thing that you're going to have to watch out for if you try to make the jump to macOS Ventura Beta. Let's talk about that part first. Let's go over the warning first before you make the jump. First of all, a beta is testing software, and I would not recommend putting this on your main system. Only put it on a test device or a second volume that you can remove or erase later if something's not working right. So now with that said, before you make the jump, we need to understand how this new mechanism works, because you could accidentally upgrade your main machine to macOS Ventura unintentionally. So how would we do that? It all depends on how do you get the beta update to show up. So let's take a look at what it looks like when we use seedutil. All you need to do is use sudo seedutil and roll developer seed. So we're going to do that, and we'll take a look at what happens when you do that. Then we'll go over to software update here, and we'll wait a second, and we'll see it update here. And there we go. macOS Ventura 13 Beta 2. And you're going to notice something right off the bat. 5.28 gigabytes. What? How can that be when the full installer itself is 12 gigabytes? Now that's where you're going to run into trouble. If you're used to all the previous macOS upgrades, you click upgrade now and it's going to download the full installer here to your applications folder, and then you can create your USB installer or install it in a second volume. But if you don't understand that when you hit upgrade now, this is actually going to upgrade your main system, that's where it's catching people off guard right away, because they don't even know about this new mechanism that you can actually make an upgrade with a Delta update. So if I click upgrade now, it's going to do just like what we talked about earlier in the changes to the update system. It's only going to download the files that you need to make the jump and the modifications to your system snapshot to jump to macOS Ventura Beta. So now that we know that, how do we get the full installer? Well, you can always go to my site to download the full installer there. What people are supposed to use is the developer beta access utility, whether they're on developer beta or on the public beta. So let's take a look at what that does now. If we run this installer here, I'll show you what it does. It's going to add you to the developer seed beta, but it's going to do an extra step that no other way to join the beta does. And it's finding the update. And what it's doing is it's actually loading a Mac App Store URL to be able to download the full installer. This here is your tip off to know that you are going to download the full installer for macOS Ventura Beta. If you don't see this, you are not going to get the full installer. So all we need to do is click on download here, and it's going to download 12.1 gigabytes. And that's going to be the full installer. And that's what we're used to be doing on previous operating systems when we're making an upgrade. So let's cancel this here. Look at what would happen to someone when they're also trying to do this. Okay, so if they cancel that, look what happens then. It doesn't just give them the full installer again, it shows them the Delta update again. So if we do that again, actually, let's take this off. We'll go to details and we'll remove ourselves from the beta to restore ourselves to default. And then we'll give it a second here and it'll clear. There we go. So now we're back at normal. Let's run through the access utility. Okay, finding the update. Give it a second. It's loading the Mac App Store URL. And well, this is what This is what doing this stuff live is, update not found. So let's run that thing again, see if we can get the full installer. What I wanted to show you is the actual code behind that. And if you open up the beta access utility, you can see exactly what this is doing. Mac App Store, iTunes, apple.com, and then the app ID for the macOS Ventura Beta. And this here is the macOS Developer Beta Access Utility package. So when we go to that URL, this is the full URL. And if we hit enter here, it's automatically going to open the App Store, and here's macOS Ventura Beta. And that's the URL that software update is opening when it's attempting to download the full installer. So let's try that again. And now look at that. Here's the other problem too. Look what's happened now. It failed to get that URL right in front of us. And now it's defaulting back to the Delta. So again, if you're not paying attention here and you upgrade now because you're thinking you're getting the full installer so you can install to USB or a second volume, you're going to be updating your main device. So let's try that install one more time to see if we can get that to happen. And now you can see why people can get tripped up here and actually make the jump on their main machine, and when that can cause a lot of problems. Okay, give it a second here, see if we can find the update. There we go. So now here's the other situation that a person could be in. If they decide, well, okay, wait a minute, I'm just going to download this later. I got to go. So I'm going to close my laptop. I'm going to hit not now, and I'll come back there. I'm on the beta utility. Again, it's going to check for the updates and show the user the Delta update, and they're going to run into problems again. Now that we know how the beta access utility app works for being able to get the full installer and the Delta, let's talk about this new upgrade mechanism here. Normally when we talk about a full upgrade, it takes a long time. And that's why it gets a lot of users nervous about making the upgrade, because of all of the time and the full installer here and all the things that are going on. The fact that Apple has been able to modify first macOS Monterey, because remember, macOS Monterey has to be able to accept the new software update mechanism. And I'm going to go into a lot of this later in a later video. I'm just trying to at least give an overview of this new process, because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes here. The fact that Apple can now offer this to users as a Delta upgrade, this is going to be a lot of an easier incentive for them to make the upgrade because of how easy it is to do. It's cut in half in the size, and it's cut in half in the amount of time that it actually takes to make the full upgrade. It's also going to be most likely more reliable, because the update mechanism has always been more reliable than the actual full 12 gigabyte installer app, because a lot of things can go wrong when you're using that installer app. This new upgrade mechanism is absolutely amazing, and once users fully get to utilize it, once it becomes public in the fall, I think it's going to be well received. When you need to do the upgrade, all you need to do is click upgrade now. You can click on agree, and again, we need the volume owner to be able to accept and start the upgrade. I'll type that in now, hit enter, and it's going to download that Delta. Again, I'm really impressed by this new update system and upgrade system. On my macOS Ventura update articles, I'm going to be documenting the different sizes for the Delta updates for previous versions of Ventura to newer versions, and I'm also going to be documenting the upgrade size from macOS Monterey 12.4 and newer to show you the size difference. Now, the Beta 2 also updated the system firmware version on M1, and I've added a new section for OS Loader version, or iBoot. Now, what is iBoot? Well, an iBoot is the second stage bootloader, and the OS Loader version will be the same as the system firmware version if you are on Apple's latest operating system version. If you're on macOS Ventura, it's going to be 84.19 for the firmware and 84.19 for the OS Loader version. But wonder if you're on macOS Monterey or Big Sur. Well, you're on 7,000 or 6,000 for Big Sur for the OS Loader version, and whatever firmware version is the latest version that is available. So why does this even matter? Well, let's use an example. On this 13-inch MacBook Pro that I'm using to upgrade now, look, it's about ready to start the upgrade process. Look at the different versions of the system firmware and OS Loader versions. If you cross-reference 84.19 here we see that that's macOS Ventura Beta 1. And the OS Loader version 7459 is macOS Monterey 12.4. Well, how in the heck is that even possible? That happens when you upgrade to macOS Ventura Beta and then downgrade with either macOS Recovery or a USB installer. And that leaves you on a beta version of the system firmware. And I don't know how that will interact. Again, having the latest version on there is the way that Apple usually does it, and there shouldn't be any problems. But we don't know that. Is there any issues with having a beta version of system firmware version on your M1 and then having a production version of macOS Monterey? We don't know. How are you going to be able to get back to a matching firmware version here? The only way to do that is to be able to do a DFU restore with Apple Configurator 2 in a second Mac. That will bring your firmware version back down to whatever it is on Monterey, and the OS Loader version will match. And again, that's why I document these, so you have a better understanding that if you see something weird here like this, you can always cross-reference with my article so you can get a better understanding of what's going on. Beta 2 also updated the T2 BridgeOS for T2 Macs from 2018 to 2020. Safari was also updated to version 16.11.3. Also, no security content. Apple usually does not release security content information for beta versions of macOS. Now I wanted to quickly show you an issue on the network pane on Beta 2 here. If you need to be able to get your IP address DNS information, on Beta 1 all you needed to do was to go onto network here, and then you could see all your network interfaces, and then you could click on this little information icon and it will give you a new menu so you can see TCP, IP, DNS, and all that information. When you try to do the same on Beta 2, by clicking network, that information bar now is no longer there. When you click this button here, you still don't have any access to that. Even by clicking on advanced, does not get you to that area. But if we go back to network and then we click on Thunderbolt Bridge and click on advanced, we can get to that menu. So that must be a bug, and I'm not sure what the deal is here, but hopefully Apple fixes that in a later beta. And if you needed to be able to get that on Beta 2, you can always click on your Wi-Fi icon here, and then a shortcut to be able to do that is hold down Option, then click on it, and you can see all the information that you would like to see about this IP address, for example, but you still don't see the DNS here, but at least you get some information that you need. That's macOS Ventura Beta 2, and I know I really went deep into the new software update mechanism and the upgrade mechanism. I was really excited about that, so it's great to see that Apple is making these wonderful changes, and it's weird that Apple's not even talking about it. I can find this information anywhere in the features or documentation part, and maybe it's because they're still working on it, right? This could always be a work in progress, and it's still great to see this stuff in action, and I wanted to show you about all the improvements. And again, any of this stuff can change throughout the beta. It can be removed. What we see in the beta can always change by the time the final version arrives. That's the beta. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the section below, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.